Hello, this is Mama Panda and you're in the Panda Family channel. I published in YouTube a while ago a video about homeschooling because it was something that was going around my head in that moment. Right now the decision is already made. We are going to homeschool my two children. The thing is that I wanted to share with you all the reasons that led me to this decision, and just like I did with the video in Spanish. If you feel more comfortable in Spanish, this is the video I'm talking about, and if you want to check all my channel in Spanish, you can have it here. First of all, everything started with the idea of going back to Peru. We are living here in Austria, and I don't know for sure how good education is here and how respectful with the children education is. But since we are planning to go back to Peru, the education in Peru is definitely not something I want for my children. The level of education is terrible. The state education, the public education, is one of the worst in Latin America and definitely one of the worst in the world. It is, I guess, or I've heard something about the fact that we're getting a little bit better and we're making an effort to improve the education, but that doesn't mean that it's gonna get good enough for me on my children's lifetime. Public education, which is a free education, is gonna be not good for me. And private education in Peru is too expensive. There's a third option where you have small classrooms and everything, and the payings are not so high, but it could be poor. Sometimes even as poor as the state, sometimes even worse. That's the education I had. My mom paid not so much for private education, and the teachers were terrible. I always tell this example. My math teacher wanted to prove that university math was not so awful. He brought a paper about it, a paper from it, with some exercises, and when he wanted to show us on the blackboard that they were not so hard, he couldn't do it. He couldn't solve the problem. And so on. I could talk a while about what teachers I had, but it's not necessary. That's the education I had. I don't say that my children would have that one. They could have an even worse education or a better education, but I'm deciding not to give them the traditional education. Another reason I have is that I'm completely against traditional education. And one of the main things, and this is the only one I'm going to mention because it's the easiest to explain, is that exams and evaluations are useless. It has to do with the idea that you cannot learn if you are afraid of making mistakes. On one side, you cannot learn, you cannot try one and again and again and again if you're afraid of making mistakes, and that's what it's learning. If you don't do it at the first time, you do it in the second and the third and the fourth. And you should be aware that that's a possibility, and you should be happy to make mistakes and continue and continue. One and twice and three times until whatever you try is done in the right way, without fear. But it's also the other thing is that when you are afraid of making mistakes, you don't face your problems. And this is my example. Let's say you're learning a foreign language and the teacher says, you have to make 10 sentences about this topic. So, since you're afraid of making mistakes, every time you doubt about what you're writing, you're going to avoid those things. You're going to make sentences that are using only those things that you are completely sure that they're right. If you make a mistake, you're gonna get less grades, so you have to avoid mistakes. What happens if you take that fear out? And the teacher says, make 10 sentences of this topic. Every time you doubt something, since your goal is learning, you will look for making mistakes, because you know that when you make a mistake, when you doubt something, when you don't know for sure if that is correct or not, the teacher will have the opportunity to tell you, no, this is not correct and this is the correct way, and you will learn. Making mistakes is a main thing when you're learning something, and you cannot in any case be in a classroom and pretend to learn when you are always afraid of making mistakes. Of course, there's something that gets in your brain, but compare it with whatever you would learn without the fear, and it would be a lot more. Another reason for me not to send my children, and I've received a lot of feedback on this, because a lot of people say, your children don't have to live what you lived and all that. But let's face it, a lot of people live what they are calling now bullying. But that's the thing. And the worst thing is that the worst bullying that I've received was not from my classmates. And I think that somehow, when you grow up and you realize how teenagers are and everything, when your bullying hasn't been so dramatic and so painful and so maybe physically traumatic, or I don't know, when it wasn't be that bad, you tend to realize that it was part of being a youngster or whatever. What really hurt me, even now when I'm more than 30 and I am already a grown-up and everything, is the bullying that came from the teachers. This ability they had to humiliate you and to punish you for nothing and to make you feel stupid and less important and everything. So, as I told my friend a while ago, there might be places where teachers are really respectful, but I haven't seen them yet. And I don't want my children to live what I lived. It's true. It's affecting my decision, what I lived, my experience, my fear of repeating the thing. And yes, there is a possibility that he won't be punished or mistreated or anything. But I don't want them to see other children being treated like that either, because then they will think that it's normal, and I don't think that's normal. Another reason is that when I study what I learned in my life, the best teachers I had was my two brothers and my sister. I learned from them English, logic and math and history, and even the reading the news and everything, all those important things of my education. I think that I can have that education for my children before anything, and just because I will live close to them. What I would have learned with them and what I would have learned with my family if I had more time with them would have been a lot more and a lot more interesting. And I would have get a lot more information if I didn't have to waste all my day at school. And that's what I feel, that I didn't learn. Yeah, maybe I learned something at school. I can't say that nothing from my head doesn't come from school. But I have the feeling that it was a amount of losing time and just a little bit of learning. And I'm gonna mention just really fast, another thing that I don't like about traditional schooling. And it's, for example, the fact that you don't have time to do what you like. You have to go there, and then you have homework, and then you have only a little time of being relaxed and being with your parents. And I don't think that that's healthy to spend all your day at school and then doing homework, and then only then, like, I don't know, go to a sport class or music or whatever, because I think that there's this whole that you don't have time for your family and to bond with your parents and everything. Traditional school still has the idea the teacher is the boss, and I don't agree with that. I think that the student should be the boss. The student should be the one who decides what to learn and how to learn, because it's his head and it's his life and it's what he's going to do. And I really believe that it's the student who should decide when and how and what to learn. And that's the only way that you have to learn a lot and in a good way. Children don't move a lot in a traditional school. Yeah, maybe in the first grades they move a lot, but I haven't seen a high school where the children are not seated a lot of hours during the day, and that, I mean, you have to just check any study. That's not even healthy. I mean, they usually, when they share these things about these new studies that say that you should move a lot during the day, that even when you are in an office you have to stand up and move every, I don't know, 30 minutes or so. They don't think about students, because students are forced to sit all day. And not in the university. I don't know how it is in other schools in other countries, but in my school it's the teacher that comes and goes, and the student doesn't move from their chair. And the worst is that if in the school you find a topic that you already know, you still have to sit there and listen to the teacher telling everything you already know again. And okay, that's it. I hope I really needed to make this video, because I will be showing you the things that I do with the children and talking about learning and teaching and all those things. And I really needed to put a basis on all this information, and of course make a video list, a reproduction list, so you can start with my reasons for homeschooling. So I hope you understood me and that my English is good enough. I hope to see you next Monday. I am trying to put videos in English every Monday, but it's not so easy for me because it's not my language, and it's a little bit harder. So give me some time, but I promise you that by the end of the year I will be already used to making it every day, every week. Goodbye. There's a third off shop. Oh, completely controlled, so I hope you understand. And if you want to share, shake